Welcome to Page Turners, a weekly bookish podcast for every kind of reader. Whether you want to explore a variety of genres, tick books off your growing TBR, or simply skip the reading for book club, we've got you covered. That's Liv.
And that's Amy.
Hello.
Hello.
Our week of love. This is the climax of our love series.
That it is. No better book to have. But before we get on to that, how have you been? How was Valentine's Day? Did you guys do anything?
Yes, we went for dinner.
Lovely.
It was nice. Yes. We went for dinner. It was very nice. Yeah. This is our 20. I don't know why I did this because I can't even do it. 12th Valentine's Day. No, 13th. Yeah. So it was nice. What did you do for Valentine's?
We don't do anything, and we never have.
No.
Well, I think actually
No, we don't even get cards.
no, absolutely not. What's the fucking point? My birthday's
Never.
before. Like
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes
No.
if we're feeling fancy, we'll split a bottle of wine and do like a murder mystery case file.
Rudy's researched a very similar thing, like a murder mystery thing, because that's what we tend to do, spend time, or Sherlock, something like that. We've got I guess it's like an expansion pack of a Sherlock murder mystery game, which is really fun. So yeah, we haven't done Valentine's Day cards in many years. The first Valentine's we had together was only 4 months after we actually started going out. So it was it's a bit weird, isn't it, when you meet someone towards the end of the year and you've got Christmas and stuff to do, and you're like, oh, do we get gifts? Do we not? Is it too much? Is it too little? So yeah, I think the first Valentine's Day was quite like, and then we both realized that neither of us were really that interested in that. So we were like, let's just not do this anymore.
Alex and I had our first date 19 days before Valentine's Day.
Mm.
So
Hmm.
we met on the 26th of January, and
Hmm.
that also is also our wedding anniversary date. We
Ah,
when we were looking at getting married in 2019, the 26th of January was a Saturday, and that was really quite nice and quite
that's
tight.
sweet. That's
So
like
yeah,
us because we got engaged on our anniversary of our first date.
cute.
I did the food shop yesterday in Sainsbury's and I could not believe that the first aisle is all Valentine's Day.
What are people buying that's not
It
already been bought?
headbands, apparently. What else was there? Little like Valentine's Day vases. A lot of home decor, Valentine's Day placemats, glassware.
It, I think they're trying to make it a bigger holiday than it is. Like even
I think they're trying to make every holiday like that now, aren't they? Like Christmas, I get we've had that for many years, but Valentine's Day and Halloween seem to be quite big.
yeah, I mean, Christmas for sure because it lasts the month, or like
Get it? Yeah.
if you want to put up your tree up earlier, maybe 6 weeks. Halloween, sure, you could probably shove that off to the month of October, but maybe like we don't decorate the house until like Halloween week. Anything, yeah, anything else, and I think, well, I mean, what they're gonna do for what St. Patrick's Day? They're gonna like headband
Mhm.
clovers or things. Oh, ridiculous.
Possibly. And Easter's already there. Like the Easter eggs are all over the shelf, all the Easter chocolates out. I'm not complaining. I love a cream egg. I have a packet of them in the cupboard. But we're always fast forward, aren't we? We're always on fast forward to the next thing.
Yeah. Oh, capitalism.
Ugh.
Speaking of capitalism, and I don't really know if that's a perfect segue, but yeah, what books have come out on February the 11th? So we're obviously well past that now, but February the 11th was the third book by the author of A Butcher and Blackbird. Um,
The third one. Oh, wow. I missed the second entirely then, did I?
yeah, no,
Goodness.
it was the Scythe and Sparrow.
Oh no, I remember seeing that actually. Yeah,
So
okay.
that came out on February the 11th. In other book news, Jeanette Winterson, the author of Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit, such a good book. Like, I happened to read it in, I think, year 11 for GCSE, but like it was so beautiful. Criticized the government.
Oh.
Yeah, she's hit out at the government over their AI plans, arguing that books shouldn't be fodder for big tech. Yeah,
Hmm.
did you see that they're changing copyright laws so that anything that goes into, or well, and I'm gonna say, guys, I may say some words that may not be true. I am not, I don't know everything. I don't, this is what I have read or have understood to have read. Anything that goes into the onto the internet or whatever will be then capable of being replicated by it'll be fed into AI to then have
Hmm.
be able to replicate things. So as an artist, they basically asked for AI to draw a squirrel in their style, and it was creepily perfect, basically replicating
Uh,
something he could have done himself.
that's interesting. It's a definite shift. I noticed that when we were watching the Super Bowl a few weeks ago, that it's interesting that it's part of so much part of the conversation that almost every other advert was something to do with AI. Because we watched the Fox coverage. So
Uh,
it was scary. It felt like very much like some kind of dystopian nightmare.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, everything. Use AI, use this. But yeah, no, she said, I'm asking the British government today to protect the copyrights of writers and artists in this country and to understand that what we do is not just data. It's not just content, and it's certainly not there for big tech to read because they can.
What are we left with if we just get to a stage where every book can be written by AI, every film can be directed, every script, and now every piece of art? What are we
Yeah,
left with?
I mean, I definitely agree with that for sure, and so therefore I don't agree with AI art. Absolutely not, or an AI, y- just in general AI bad. But like having seen some of the stuff that AI's come up with, I'm still kind of like I completely agree that things should not be fed into AI that are, copyrights and patents, etc.
Hmm.
But I'm not as worried about the fact that it could be used to do everything because I've seen some of the like what only up until recently it still gives people 10 fingers on one hand like
Yeah. I
you
mean,
know,
and there are lots of very positive uses for it. I'm not of the opinion that it should just be taken away entirely, but it's difficult because you've got to then rely on the responsibility of people, and we can't do that. We can't rely on people being necessarily sensible and respective when they're using it. So yeah.
yeah, I think but
That's
also
interesting.
I think for me I'm worried about the environmental complications of AI and how much energy it uses for each sort of thing so and
It's a crazy statistic, isn't it? What is that statistic? It's insane. Like how much energy one search costs.
yeah it's
And
something
yeah.
I'm sure my husband is shouting at us now. Apologies straight away. But yeah, no, it is some ridiculous energy usage.
Mhm.
Which, when you
Yeah.
consider like you see it on Instagram, it's like, oh, I made myself look like a Disney princess. I'm like, we are
Yeah.
leveraging the world beneath our feet. Just
Oh dear.
just to get me looking like Aurora from Sleeping Beauty. Yeah. No. But Amy, what are you currently reading?
Nothing romantic. I'm reading Last Days by Adam Neville. It's horror. It's
Oh,
a cult. And it's found footage and it's great. It's really scary. I really like it. I know how the end it ends, and I know the end is quite maybe not widely criticized, but some people don't enjoy it because it becomes much more of like a kind of shoot out against the goodies and the baddies and the monsters, and it all becomes a bit like, oh, but at the moment, it's so creepy and so unsettling, and yeah, it's good. What about you?
I'm beginning to reread a series that I sort of loved when I was much younger, that I probably shouldn't have loved when I was younger. I am reading the Anita Blake series by Laurel K. Hamilton. The first book is called Guilty Pleasures. Anita is known as the executioner. Vampires exist within the world, like they've come out of hiding and they're now trying, like, there's that classic, like, politics of like humans against vampires, humans for vampires. And yeah, basically, there's a bunch of murders happening within the
Mm,
vampire community, and Anita's been brought in to look at it. And yeah,
sort it out.
I think
Yeah,
there's about
cool.
20 odd books in this series, and I
Wow.
definitely stopped reading mid-teens.
Oh, okay.
So I've got a while to go, but I'm determined to get to the end.
I
Maybe
like a reread, doing what we do because we read so much, but so many books that we don't, well, we do choose to read them, but we also read some books out of obligation because we've kind of started now and we will finish. And I
sorry,
like being able to dip in and out.
sorry, no, which books are you referring to there, Amy? What?
Couldn't possibly comment. Could not possibly comment. No further questions at this time. But yeah, I like having something that you can kind of, I'll read it. If I don't finish it, it's okay because I've read it before. That's a good strategy.
And they're not very long. I think this book's about
Right.
260 pages. Very easy plot. If I wanted to, I probably could have started with the book I think I finished on, about 14 or whatever.
Mhm.
But I want to read it again with like a
Okay.
more critical eye.
That's cool.
Um, so for the next however what you currently reading, if the answer isn't a podcast book, it's probably going to be this series. So yeah.
Yeah.
But it is the end of our Valentine's special. So tell us, Amy, what have we read this week?
Before we get started, if you know me in real life, please switch this episode off. Thank you. Okay. We read A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor by Kathryn Moon, and love might be in the air, but other things also might be in the air, namely bodily fluids. So strap in.
Yep. And strap on.
Oh boy.
All
Okay,
right,
have you managed to summarize this book, Liv?
I have, but let's do some trigger warnings first.
Oh boy, right. Okay. Well, before we even get started on anything, I was actually very surprised because, I mean, I have not read, this is my first foray into monster romance. I would have thought the trigger warnings would have been at the front of the book.
Hmm.
I don't know, I just assumed it would all be there right away when you open the book up, but it isn't. However, Kathryn has got a website, kathrynmoon.com, and you can visit it and you can filter by the book, by this, in fact, by the series, because she has got so many monster romance works. And this series is the Tempting Monsters series. So you can go on the website, click on Tempting Monsters, and then you can scroll down. Content warning. And I was laughing earlier because of all the things we're about to discuss in this book, I wouldn't have thought this would be the first thing that Kathryn listed when she was thinking of the content warnings, but it is. So we have house fire, murderous intent, choking, near drowning, murderous possession of character, violence, stabbing. And then for our sexual content warning, explicit sex, knotting, blood play, anal, edging, public sex, voyeurism, oral, non-human/human sex, electricity sex, sex theatre, because we all know what that is, light consensual non-consent with invisible man, light somnophilia with a vampire.
What I love about that is somnophilia is clearly known, but like sexual with an invisible man, that's not a
I don't know
class.
what I'm going into. I know. I can't go into that now that I know the trigger warning with my eyes open, ready to just receive that information. I also love theatre, sex theatre, not theatre sex, in which case you could maybe start to think, okay, but sex theatre,
Yeah.
which basically is like voyeurism and like, yeah, public sex. So she kind of covers that already.
Just as a thing, I realize we just both said, "Oh, we know what somnophilia is." For anyone listening who doesn't know what it is the urge or desire to have sex with someone who is asleep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yep.
yeah. So obviously, Amy's already just said if it's someone that knows her, please turn it off. Except from Laura. Laura, please continue on.
Oh, Laura, you can listen, but if like somehow my parents or my husband's parents are listening to this, please don't listen to this because you'll never be able to unhear me say these things.
Agreed. Yeah, we're gonna do our best to not beat around the bush, but lol.
Wait,
But also we're not gonna be. Oh look, I said the C word the last episode, so
you did.
it
You
could be,
did.
you know us. I swear a lot. Amy swears sometimes, but doesn't swear a lot because if anything, she's trying to tamper down the average of words that aren't swear words from me. We all our episodes are marked as explicit because we don't hold back our views. We do talk about some dark themes. This is probably the filthiest book that we have talked about.
Yeah, I think we certainly discussed it potentially being Patreon exclusive, and then we decided against it. So take from that what you will. It is going to be very explicit. This book is not appropriate if you are under the age of 18, I would say.
Yeah, no, I mean, if there's anyone listening right now who is under the age of 18,
Please don't listen to this.
please, I mean, no, don't listen to us. Like,
No, don't listen to. No, we shouldn't be, but especially don't listen to this. I mean, if you are, I don't know, you just got to go into this with your eyes open. You've got to accept that it's very tongue in cheek. None of this is anatomically correct. none of this is historically accurate. So if you do find it offensive, then that's also something you might want to think about. Kathryn hasn't mentioned that, but there are references to other cultures and things in here. And I'm not convinced that this, any of it's in any kind of factual accuracy, but I don't think I would read this book looking for that. So there we go. We've covered it all.
Smashing. And that leads us into the speedy summary.
What do you think? You think you're going to manage speedy or just a summary?
I think we're looking at 90 seconds.
Perfect. Okay, are you ready?
Yes.
Right. Three, two, one.
Esther is a maid in a noble house, and we are told lots that Esther loves sex and she has a talent and inclination for it. After losing her job due to the lordship's bad investments and lack of funds, Dr. Underwood offers her an opportunity. She goes to his offices at night and he pleasures her with a scientific vibrator. After lots of orgasms, the doctor becomes someone else, someone dramatically larger, and he tells Esther not to look at them and they have sex. The next day, she's taken to Rooksgrave Manor, a large Gothic house tucked away from prying eyes. Esther is told that Rooksgrave is a house for gentlemen who are not conventionally welcome in polite society, and the ladies here offer them companionship and sex without judgment. Esther is very excited and is told her second client, because Dr. Underwood has signed up to be her first, is due in a couple of days. Over the next few chapters, Esther has sex with a vampire, an invisible man, a sphinx shifter, the golem butler, and the doctor and his alter ego, Mr. Tanner. One day, though, Magdalena, the madam of Rooksgrave, asks her to step in for a client, and Esther agrees. The water demon that she has been asked to have sex with is a trap, however, and it tries to hurt Esther, saying, "I'll take you to him," until she's saved by Ezra, the invisible man. It is decided she should go to London with the Doctor and August the vampire to get away from the manor for a few days. They go to the theatre as a three, and it turns out it's a sort of a voyeur monster sex show. Esther and Dr. Underwood and Mr. Tanner perform to much applause, though one face stands out in the crowd. A man named Bersha, a meant to be dead old king of Gomorrah, who owns houses like Rooksgrave all over the world, but they are dedicated to pain and the breaking of women. He wants Esther because of her appetite for sex and considers breaking her a great challenge. He tries to possess Booker, the golem, but that doesn't work, so he becomes increasingly desperate to get to her. After an evening at Amon's, the Sphinx's house, August, the vampire, returns to rest below the manor, and the men and Esther follow later on, only to find the manor ablaze and in ruins. Amon offers shelter to all at his house, but they must leave August below, death unknown, because of the sun. They return the next day together, and Esther is drawn away by Bersha, who has captured August and threatens him if Esther doesn't submit to his will. Thankfully, Ezra, Invisible Man, manages to get a knife to Esther, who stabs Bersha but doesn't kill him. They rescue August as Big Bad fizzles away, threatening revenge. Reunited, they all go to Egypt together to live and hunt out Bersha, and there's the promise of a forever. The end.
2.5 minutes.
Oh God, as I was reading it, I was like, I thought this was faster. I thought this was faster.
I went into this with the thought that it was going to be like one of my, probably not all time, but like really love it TV shows, Penny Dreadful. And I was loving the vibes. Like, I was really excited to get started. Uh, from maybe like the kind of second chapter, I was just like, okay, the vibes are just, there's plot, but it's loose, and we're just here for the smutty goodness. What
Yeah.
was your first impressions of this?
First off, I feel like it should be known. There is no way you could call this historical fiction if that's what you were trying to do, but it is set in a sort of semi-Victorian London. Um,
Kind of, yeah, yeah.
Hence Amy's sort of Penny Dreadful vibes that's what she wanted. My first impressions were honestly, Esther has absolutely no confidence in herself, which is mad for someone that's like going to go and be like a sex worker and have sort of a harem of men. Every time she's just
Totally.
like, oh, a girl like me. I didn't have a proper talent. Oh, I wasn't an actress or an opera singer. And I put in my notes, it literally, location 151, so like the first three pages or something. Way to big yourself up. Wait, is her talent gonna be sex? And yeah,
Mm.
it didn't draw me in at the beginning.
Oh, so when she was outside listening to Dr. Underwood pleasuring, that didn't draw you in, no?
No, funnily enough. Yeah, so we first meet Esther basically with her hands down her pants as she is masturbating to the sounds of her mistress in the throes of multiple orgasms because Dr.
Mm,
Underwood has been called for her mistress's hysteria.
mhm.
Um,
Which was a thing. That
yeah,
was a thing.
yeah,
So,
absolutely.
so I wasn't loving it. I was similar to you in that I was like, okay, but at least I thought, okay, I know that that is there's some accuracy there. There's some research perhaps been done. Maybe
In a,
quickly that gone. That was
yeah,
gone quickly.
I wouldn't go that far. Yes, women were obviously diagnosed with hysteria, but and some of them were given orgasms to help with that, but some of them
Mm.
were treated despicably. Do you know why it's called hysteria?
No, don't think
Because
so.
the root word hyster is the Latin or Greek word for womb. So
So it's like the
any,
sickness of the womb, essentially.
so any time I hear of a woman having hysteria, it immediately boils my piss because only women can have hysteria, no men.
Can
But
be hysterical. It's
and it
so belittling and disgusting when someone says that. Yeah, totally.
and it's because of our wombs.
Oh yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's what makes us weak and
Mm.
hysterical little women. Yeah. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I had a different reaction from you. I was holding the Kindle very tightly.
Mm. I think I just thought, well, at least there's something. At least there's something going to be happening here. Quite quickly, not really.
Yeah, so from that,
Yeah.
then she's sort of on the cusp of an orgasm, and as she has the orgasm, the doctor comes out the door with no warning. I will point out, like, what are you doing, Esther? You're just fingering yourself in the middle of the hallway, and you've never considered to listen to anyone walking about.
The
Anyway,
sound's off as well, presumably by this point. The very extremely loud vibrations have gone by this point.
yeah.
But
Um,
she's locked in. She's too focused on the task in hand.
and then he comes out, and she's all like, "Oh!" And then he's like, "Oh, your mistress might want some water." And then apparently, for the next couple of years, they just never see each other again. Because
No.
there's a
Mm.
very small time jump where basically Esther's then about to lose her job because the Lord's diddled away all the money, and then he then corners her and is like, "I've got an opportunity for you," and she thinks it's to be his mistress, and it's not. Basically, yeah, he is a client of this house. Let's discuss first of all Rooksgrave Manor because clearly
Mm.
there's a waiting list because Magdalena, the Madame, who is clearly a witch, although it's never really said, um,
No. It's
um,
alluded to.
she, I want to talk about this process. She has a waiting list of men who then
Hmm.
she sort of pairs with the girls that come to her via a sort of magic questionnaire system that
Well,
sounds sort of
yeah.
akin to something that the experts use on Married at First Sight.
It's similar to that. I think Magdalena would do well on that show. She could really slot in there. Yeah, the justification is very flimsy in that these men can be very territorial,
Mhm.
and it's better for Magdalena to pair up the girls with maybe one or two or three or four or however many men, rather than just letting them go about their will in the house
Yeah,
and having relations with whoever they choose to.
yeah,
That's not allowed. Mm.
yeah. And so what
Mm.
I'm considering is Esther comes along and we are given introduction to some of the girls who then have one or two or three, like you said, suitors. How long is this waiting list and what are you supposed to do? Like it sounds like it's an exorbitant fee. And what so you,
How many men were there? Because Esther has five, including the golem, Booker, who isn't really a client. He's just there.
he's the
He's been
butler.
created by Magdalena as a butler.
Yep.
So, and Ezra isn't actually the Invisible Man isn't actually a client because he's just sneaking on in through the wards that are around the manor. So, how many other clients are there? How exclusive are we talking here?
I mean,
20?
it seems fairly exclusive. Like, yeah, but then obviously we're told that there are other houses that are capable of this, but not all of them are as nice as Rooksgrave. Like some are
No,
obviously meant to be,
because the big part of Rooksgrave is that it's very much based in consent,
yes. And
and
also,
the women that are there want to be there.
yes, and they're not just there for sex.
No, no. Whereas there are other houses where consent is not either not valued at all or is almost the opposite. It's not what they want. They want it to be non-con. the
Yeah,
whole time.
a lack of consent is sought.
Yes.
Yeah,
Mm.
so
Is there
yeah,
an application, do you
that's it.
think?
That's it. What are you looking for?
Monster.
Yeah.
Number one, supernatural creature of some kind. And then I don't know because I can't find what's the same about any of the characters that would make me think, oh, you've ticked that box. I don't know. Is it wealth? Do you have to be particularly wealthy? Is there a fee?
Yeah, oh yeah, there is a fee because that's why
There's a
Ezra
fee.
isn't allowed because
That's
Aura
right, because he's
takes care
mm,
of his fee. But also I think Magdalena pairs together men that wouldn't mind sharing.
yes, in Esther's case, because she's insatiable. So she's never going to be a one monster kind of gal. Kind
I
of gal. No way.
I just
So insatiable to the point where after she sees a woman having some kind of sexual relations with a werewolf from her bedroom window of the manor, she just goes and humps her bed.
she goes and humps her pillow, yeah.
Yeah. So she just can't get enough of it.
But what I like about it is, sorry, like what I find strange about it is this book is obviously, and we'll talk about reverse harem in a sort of broader text. This
Mm.
book, from the outside for me would be strongly sex positive. We're devising all sorts of kinks here. Not really all that research, but that's fine, whatever. Group sex, etc. Like in and out every single hall, different kinds of things and stuff.
Mm.
So to have a main character that is constantly all the way throughout the book, and I don't think you can call this character development, although some people might try and argue that she thinks, oh, I'm such a wicked thing because I'm just so insatiable because, oh, I just want to have sex again, constantly belittles herself because of it. And it just
Mm.
felt so off with what the tone of the book was supposed to be. And I feel like maybe we get there towards the end with Esther, but like I just would have from the off preferred her to be like, yeah, I like sex and what?
I don't know if it's because Catherine Moon wanted to create some kind of character arc for Esther, and that was the decision. I don't know. Or if it was supposed to be a commentary of the time in which we were set. But either way, none of those things were done particularly well. So I agree with you. I don't know why we didn't just have the positivity straight away. It would have
Yeah.
made more sense. Plus, we know that Rooksgrave Manor is where like women who want to have these relations with these monsters would go voluntarily. That's the whole draw of that particular manor.
Yeah.
So it was a bit confused at times.
Yeah,
At times, it was confused.
um and the whole concept of reverse harem, it's I'm not going to say a new concept, but it is quite a strong feminist, sex positive concept because we're looking at, one woman with a choice of five guys. There's that why choose element, have them all. Like,
Mhm.
and they all exist because they love her and they want to please her. And that is such a strong place to come from that I find it also so jarring when Esther only really learns to accept herself in terms of her sexiness when the men tell her that it's okay. We love that you're set
Yeah.
insatiable. I know that this book isn't taking on any sort of social commentary, and that is me putting upon
No,
that
it's
something,
a wild ride.
yeah,
Mm.
putting upon that. But you've got to find the good and the bad. Because personally, I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed this book.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, we've got to comment what's in front of us. We have to discuss it. No one is saying or suggesting that this is some kind of social commentary that should be studied and followed and respected. And I don't think it's fair to Catherine Moon to suggest that that's what she's going for, because I'm sure that's not quite what she had in mind. She had how many different ways can we get monsters to have sex with this woman?
Yeah,
That's got its place too. That's fine. We are
yeah,
all for that. But you're right, we can only discuss what's there. And it was a bit disappointing that on one hand, we had such sex positive commentary, and on the other hand, we had a lot of shame. And you're right, all of her self esteem was completely reliant on how the men of the book made her feel, or reassured her, or told her how she should feel a lot of the time. You look like this, you love it, and I love it because you love it. And yeah, it was a lot of hiding behind closed doors and not really wanting to admit that she was really sexually adventurous and insatiable throughout the full story. I totally agree with what you're saying though, in terms of like how much you enjoyed it, because I actually thought the characters and the way that they were written was pretty good. Like it could have easily not been. It could have just been a series of sex scenes interspersed with a little bit of we go here, we go there, this person has sex with this person. But it wasn't. There was definitely a plot.
Yeah, there definitely was the attempt at a plot, for sure. I'm not sure I'd give them the big thumbs up that it was a plot. No, I see what you're saying.
As we've alluded to, it's a little bit plot light. So we thought we'd try something a little bit different today. And we've decided to rank our how many did you rank? Did you rank all five?
Yes.
Yeah, including Booker.
Yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Right. So I'm going to rank the Monster Boys, the gang, and compare and contrast and see how we got on. So do you want to start from last place to first?
Oh, you want me to you do last?
Well,
Okay.
let's do one at a time. I think it'd be fun to see like and then just see where we sit. So who's your last place character?
Ezra.
Oh my, really? Why? Interesting. Why?
I
Just
just
not
I,
doing for you.
yeah, I didn't like his nickname for her. Like I because it's like
Kitty
I
cat.
yeah, but he says it I assume he says it in Gaelic. But
Yes, Ezra's an Irishman. He's invisible, but he's Irish. He was my number one.
oh,
I know. That's why I was saying, oh, I was shocked. Yeah, yeah, he's my number one.
you're like a bit
Mm,
rough.
I did. I liked a little bit rough. I liked that he was invisible. I quite liked his little story because he had a bit of a monkey paw situation, didn't he? And that he'd made a wish and then he'd been given his wish, but it was to be harder to detect, doesn't he? He wants to be able to kind of get away with things. And so he's cursed to be invisible, essentially. Um,
But
and
not
then at the end,
but not because halfway through the book Magdalena,
she just changes her mind. Yep. And he just appears in Esther's bedroom, not invisible.
but he can like he has to concentrate. But yeah, no, apart yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting because when she takes his invisibility t-shirt off, it materializes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Some sort of sci-fi in there as well. So this could count as our sci-fi book because there's
Tick, tick,
scientific
tick.
vibrators and sci-fi some sort of thing. So it's Ezra's atoms that are the cause for
Mhm.
the invisibility. So anything that touches him or interacts with his matter becomes invisible. But when it is separate
No
from
longer attached to him.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, science,
Um,
science, guys.
science. And when he touches her, she feels it. So like if he touches her, like puts her his I think at one point he puts his fingers in her mouth or something. And then he puts them right where you expect them to go next.
Yes.
She feels it. So I thought it was interesting. I quite liked him. I liked he was quite dominant. I was all right with Ezra, and I quite enjoyed his. Yeah, I thought his storyline was pretty cool.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. All
Who
right. Okay.
who is your last place?
Eamon,
Ah, ah.
is he your first?
No, no, but
Oh, okay. I just felt like he was the one that was just too possessive, and I just didn't like it. And I know that it's probably supposed to be that he just wants her for himself, and he needs to, and it was his character development that he had to learn that as part of that relationship that they were involved in altogether, that he had to allow her to do what she wanted to do. But I felt like it was such a big thing for Esther to want to be free and be sexually, explore things sexually, that he just didn't really respect it the way the other guys did. And I was just always a bit like, shut up, Eamon. Let her do what she wants. Yeah.
yeah, Eamon is the Sphinx shifter.
Mm-hmm.
He can appear as both a Sphinx, as we know them to be.
Fluffy paws, I think it described him as having at one point.
For those of you that don't know, and for myself, the Sphinx is a mythical creature with the head of a human, the body of a lion, and the wings of an eagle.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he comes to her in a dream. He is the most powerful. He is clearly some
Mm-hmm.
sort of like Egyptian royalty or some sort of mythical, whatever, royal god type thing.
God thing. Yeah, yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I don't know. Yes, he's got powers. He can shift. He has a hook.
Ah, yes, he does have a knot.
Yeah, yeah, it was in the trigger warnings, noting. Yeah, it
Yeah,
was in there.
so, yeah, he has a hook on his penis, in his penis, underneath his penis, something big.
Around there. Penis adjacent.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah. But we're all told it's okay because it doesn't actually hurt a lot. It's
No.
like pain and pleasure.
Oh, it's great. Everything's great in this. I thought it more because it was like Egyptian. I pictured it like a crook,
Oh,
you know,
100%.
like a crook and flail. I
Yeah.
thought, oh, right, little nod to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, no. Thankfully, she doesn't describe it because it's sort of it's already inside Esther, and like we don't. She Esther's like, oh, what's that? You're just like, well,
Esther just goes along with so much. Like, she very rarely questions anything.
yes. Okay, so your last was Eamon.
Mm.
My so are we putting Dr. Tanner,
Oh, I just counted them together.
counting them together? Then my fourth is Booker.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I liked Booker very much because he's very sweet and clearly very much in love with Esther, like enamored
Hmm.
by her, but he's fucking solid marble. Couldn't get over it. I couldn't get over
I
the fact
know.
he's solid
I
marble.
know. Kathryn really does try by talking about how it's cool and it's like oh, it doesn't sound comfortable to be honest. And then at one point he touches his fingers with it, touches his lips with his fingers, and it's like a clinking sound. Like yeah, no, I couldn't get on board with Booker. I agree, he was very sweet. I liked his character, but it just made me do this a lot when I was reading it.
For you, Page Turner's pod, we'll definitely be including that
Mm.
on TikTok.
Great. Yeah, it was a grimace more than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Oh, she kind of asks to be with it, doesn't she? She goes to Magdalena and she says, can I bit of fun with Booker?" And she's like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not a client. He's a butler, isn't he?"
Yeah. I just also couldn't get over with the problem is with making him sort of newly made and then making him cute.
Yes.
We've got this childlike quality to him, and I
Yes.
just never got over that.
Hmm.
It's the snowman and Hot Frosty again. Like he's only just
Yes.
made. I mean, thankfully with Booker, he doesn't have to relearn everything like an actual child. He clearly comes with other things, and he's clearly very much like whatever, but he didn't have a huge amount of speech. It just felt
No.
weird for me. It just felt
I
weird.
agree. Yeah, he couldn't really speak in full sentences, could he? He kind of spoke in like one word responses and things. Yeah, and it felt a little bit like he was very naive and almost infantilized. And yeah, it was a bit icky. Yeah, yeah. Okay, we agree with that one.
So my third is Dr.
Underwood.
Underwood. Thank you. I keep saying Rookwood.
Yeah,
Dr. Underwood and Mr. Tanner.
same.
Yeah.
Yep, same.
Jekyll and Hyde type situation. I don't know if she was trying to keep it hidden that this is what was going to happen, but immediately I have it in my notes. His pale eyes, were they green and a different? I was like, oh, okay, right, fair enough. So he's got some blokey living inside of him. Cool, okay, they
Yeah,
share.
exactly. It was instant, wasn't it? Especially, and then we know right away as well in the shadow part where she goes to his practice. She goes to Dr. Underwood's practice because he invites her along. He says, "There's something I think you might be interested in. Come along. You can also try out the vibrator." Good times. And his shadow just seems so much bigger than he is. And you're like, yeah, 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 it's Hyde. Yeah, we
Yeah.
know.
So
We get it. I didn't like Mr. Tanner that much.
I didn't mind him. I didn't really enjoy the sort of explanation as to why. So they she tries to give a sort of again a science explanation. So hold on to your hats, scientists. He studied psychology, and she's like,
Hmm.
"What's psychology?" And I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh God." And he basically talks about how he's always had this person inside of him, this voice inside of him, aka Mr. Tanner, who wants him to do bad things. And so
Hmm.
he attempts to try and get it out of him,
Hmm.
and thus he triggers something in his DNA, obviously,
Of
that
course. You got to watch your DNA when you're doing things. Things
always,
can.
always, that
Mm.
ensues that Mr. Tanner comes forth and is actually the dominant personality when dormant as well.
Yeah, and you know, I actually think that if you were to write a romance book with like Jekyll and Hyde like character, that could be a really interesting dynamic to explore.
Somebody must have done it.
Yeah,
Somebody
I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. And I was when we first read it, because you texted me quite early in and you said like, "Oh, I'm liking the Jekyll and Hyde vibes," like straight away. And I was like, "Me too, totally, sign me up for this." And then it just sort of the explanation wasn't great.
it
And yeah, Mr. Tanner, I was just a bit like, oh, he was giving me the ick. It's just a bit
um
too rough and nah.
For me, it wasn't so much that he was rough, but it was that he was just described as like a big old gorilla. Like he had excess hair. Like it was just
And he had red skin and white scars, and like it was all a bit.
and
It was like, I want to fuck. It was like intense. That's lost. We need to keep this in. I can't even see you on this either. There's no nuance.
yeah. I that came from nowhere. That came from your boots. That came from your Mr. Tanner. I thought,
It
Jesus
did.
Christ.
Mm.
Yeah, such a weird one because he didn't have to be massive and ugly. He could have had a massive cock. That's the whole thing about Mr. Tanner is like Jonathan, Doctor Underwood is like meant to be like quite soft and insecure. Very classic Jekyll. I think he does come into his own a bit more in the book, which is fine. But then you've got Mr. Tanner, who is clearly dominant. See Amy's impression 45 seconds ago. Um, and he but he doesn't have to be hideous. Like he doesn't have
Oh,
to be
no.
hideous. But I like that he sort of was, and that Esther loved him anyway, and she was very much like, "Show me, I'm not scared." Like I enjoyed that element of it.
Yeah, and she kind of likes, well, she does. She has different feelings for both of them, but she feels strongly about each. Like she feels really strong about Dr. Underwood, but she also has a little love for Mr. Tanner. And that was nice. That was all right, but I couldn't get on board with him. And I just, yeah, when he shifted and changed, and it was like, didn't read very nicely, did it? You're right in what you say about the excess hair and the.
Yeah,
Mm.
and like, he's probably the most monstrous out of all of them. Like
Yes,
he did a
yeah.
very good job of, oh, they're all monsters, yet they're all exotically beautiful in their own way.
Mm. And the anatomy was a little bit monstrous.
Mm, yes.
Um, and there were definitely hints to things like tentacles and claws and different kind of penis shapes and all sorts. That was going on. But you're right, all the monsters Esther kind of has her relationships with. Yeah, you're right. Mr. Tanner was the one that was most monstrous. The others were just like, oh, he's a vampire who's really hot. Oh no. How can I get on board with this?
How? This is just so shocking to read. Oh my God. Yeah, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And then Eamon, who doesn't have sex with her in his Sphinx form at all, always has sex
No.
in his really hot Egyptian prince form. Oh no,
Yeah.
horror, the horror.
Oh, amen.
Oh, we mustn't look. So Mr. Tanner's a bit of a shock to the system. Yeah, fine. So my second is Eamon.
Okay, fair enough.
Yes, I know that he was possessive and it got a bit, but he learned very quickly. That for me, the
Hmm.
character development was what I was all about. I mean, why have an original thought, Liv? Like, I always love fucking character development. Um, and he
Oh, but
learns
that's fair. That's
he,
fair.
he's the one that, has the most to do, and he is the one that changes himself for her. So I think
Hmm. Hmm.
it's quite admirable, and I enjoyed that he was rich as fuck. I enjoyed that he was like, I want to treat you like a queen. Like I've got the capabilities you'll never want for anything. Like he was so straight up about it and just didn't want anything else but her company.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, fair, fair, fair.
Don't get me wrong, I know that that can come across as a red flag. You've got love bombing, that sort of manipulation and stuff.
Yes.
I think that was very much taken out. Like she was very straightforward of like you wouldn't want me if I was the kind of woman that just told you what to buy or like,
Hmm.
told me that you could buy me or whatever. And he agrees. He
Hmm.
says, no, I wouldn't. And
No,
so it's thankfully, whilst it looks like I'm having a red flag moment, it is very much like it's there to be a red flag for him to overcome that.
agreed. Hmm.
Yeah.
So you're number one.
Is August.
He's my second. Yeah. And I think I could have definitely had him at number one and Ezra at number two. That would have been okay. I really liked August.
Yeah, me too. I think first off, French vampire. Well, I mean, what's
Oh
not?
no.
Yeah, no, the
Oh,
horror.
oh, it's
Oh,
hideous. Oh, close the book. Oh,
yeah, and also French vampire who happens to not be an old bloke frozen in time. He
no.
happens to be the sexiest man clearly alive in France at that time. yeah, not shot down with the plague or any kind of syphilis or whatever. No, he is in perfect condition. Yeah, I mean, he's just really nice and like I just
Just nice. I know he's just lovely.
there's one bit where and it's nothing to do with August, thankfully. She goes down to meet him for the first time. It's I clearly think it's a pet peeve with me and when I explain it, maybe it'll be with yourself as well. He made her loads of food and it's such an act of service for him and he's made all these beautiful pastries and desserts and things and he says to her, "Oh, I was," but he says it in he just says the word in French, pâtissière, pâtissière thing.
Mm.
And then there's a pause, and he goes, pastry chef. I'm like, yes, of course that's what that means. Of course it's what that means. Look at everything in front of you. Look at all the desserts lined up. Of course. She's not stupid.
Really? Pastries? Oh no, no way. I could never have guessed.
But yeah,
Hmm.
I was just like,
It's very sweet though. I loved at the end when he gets the ability to be in the sun so that he can spend time with her and like yeah, it's very sweet. I liked August. He was ridiculously hot and also a green flag.
they're all willing to sort of almost have sex together. And the scene with Jonathan and August was very hot. That was really hot.
Hmm.
And also, I mean, sorry guys for the a bit, we're going to go down a small explicit route. I'm not normally a fan of double penetration because I cannot fathom two.
But was it not like it wasn't was it not that
Oh wait, sorry. There is
yeah, August was penetrating Esther
and
and
then Jonathan
Jonathan
was
was
fucking.
penetrating August at the
Sorry,
same time.
it's not. There is a double penetration scene, but I
There is. Oh, there has to be Liv.
it's come on, yeah. Maybe it's when they're all together for that evening at Eamon's house.
Yeah, that's the one I'm thinking about.
Yeah, because yeah. So sorry, completely different points. Love Jonathan and August. Very hot scene. Very cool,
Hmm.
etc. I don't normally like double penetration,
Fair. Yeah. Okay.
but I mean because I just can't fathom that there would be enough room.
No, I know exactly what you mean.
Like,
No.
I mean, different anatomy, but like with a male, you've got like obviously that the taint. No, I can't call it gooch. No, perineum. You've got the perineum, which is the space between quite considerable space between the end of the ball sack and the butthole.
Hmm.
Women, I mean, obviously, not all women, not all men. We don't all have constricting anatomy. Please,
Hmm.
I'm not saying that. Don't cancel us. We're not bad people. Most women, yeah, there is no gap. We don't have a
No.
perineum. Perineum. We don't have any of that. It is so small. So to have a penis,
Yeah, it's like a layer of muscle, isn't it? Like
yeah,
one little bit. Yeah.
yeah,
I don't like reading stuff like that either, to be honest, because it does make me like feel like I need to cross my legs and be like, ooh, no.
no.
But you enjoyed it this time. You found this was a good example, or you just felt you were in too deep at this point.
Probably, do you know what? That's probably it. I was very much in the sex cave, and I was like, oh, this is at least something I've
Bubbling for light.
yeah. Oh, there's the outside. Like
Desperate. Did you like how did you feel about like the pain pleasure elements, like the electricity play? Yeah, I felt the same way. Liv's just grimacing at me right now.
the electricity one was weird. The biting and sense.
Hmm.
I've read so much in terms of vampires and sexies.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like
it doesn't bother you.
the pain is pleasure, and it makes sense for the pain to be pleasurable because otherwise that's how evolution has happened. Because no, they wouldn't
Hmm.
get anyone to do it if the pain didn't become a pleasurable thing. So
Totally.
I completely understand that. Just I don't consider myself a sexual connoisseur.
Oh,
I don't consider
okay.
myself well versed in all the forms of sexual intercourse one can have.
Hmm.
However, I had never heard of electricity play.
I mean, I kind of just, when it got brought up, I thought, okay, I guess it's a thing. Like, in the sense that everything is sort of a thing for
Well,
people, you know.
absolutely. And
But I'm exactly the same. I have never encountered it in, certainly not in real life, but I haven't even really read books about it, to be honest.
no, and I wonder whether it actually is a known kink for like because it's the way it was described to me, or at least the way I sort of read it was like a little zzz. which I could, don't get me wrong, I could understand when you're very heightened that that would be quite a sensation.
Yeah. I
But
can see it being kind of similar to like being spanked in that situation. Or like, but like not like with a Pam. I'm talking like people being spanked like a riding crop. Like
right, yeah,
agony if you were thinking of it outside the context of that moment. But because everything is heightened, it's enjoyable
yeah.
because it blurs the lines between pain and pleasure. But this sounded like you were getting a full-blown electric shock.
This sounded like I was gonna say, trying to jack off a car, trying to get like a chat and like trying to with those
Yeah.
clips, those clamps with
Like
the
jumpstart one.
jump start. That's it,
Yeah.
not jack off.
We're back in the cave again.
Yeah, I can't get
Yes.
out, Amy. I can't get out. Yeah. So that jump start because that's the kind of
Mm.
voltage I felt like we were going for.
Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah,
It was loud zaps. It was
so
described as being really painful.
yeah, so if anything, then when she had sex with Mr. Tanner, whilst it's the biggest cock anyone's ever seen in their entire
Mm.
life, and it's probably like sh that classic thing of monster romance where it's like showing through her stomach. That actually was quite vanilla compared to the electric.
Compared to, yeah, the electric shock stuff. Mm.
Yeah,
Mm. Any other sexual encounters that she has? Well, when the big bad comes along,
Bersha.
Bersha, and she says that he's like, I want to break you. She just goes right on in there with her identity, her sexual identity, her power, and she's like, listen, there's nothing I've not been doing with these men. So whatever you want to do with me, sign me up.
Yeah, I mean, I had a little gasp at one particular
Mm,
thing, and do you know, I think I'm not gonna say it because I mean we've said every said a lot this evening, but I'm not gonna say it. But you know what I'm talking about, where she says something like, you wanna fuck me?" He says, "No, Esther." And she's like, I had a little like, wow, that is, I've read a
me
lot
too.
through the last however many pages, but
I know.
it's when something becomes insidious and non-con that it just shoot.
Yeah, yes, I know exactly what you mean. Like at this point, you're just constantly like having a bit of fun reading it, and everything's really extreme, and you're like, oh my goodness, what can happen next? And then that was definitely like a bucket of cold water.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I felt that it could have been alluded to
Mhm.
without having it being expressly said because
Yeah,
I want to bend you to my will. I want you to submit,
want to break you.
break, there's something
Mm.
would fit with the narrative of what we've been given for Bersha, who I keep accidentally mispronouncing as Bershka, and I know that that is a clothing brand. Yeah, it just seemed unnecessary, and this is what we're
Yeah,
talking about when we talk about sort of the use of rape and use of not non-consensual sexual activity for shock factor, for shock value.
hmm
It doesn't
hmm
add to the plot. Is dancing around it, but I don't know. I felt like the dancing around it, the being more vague about it, breaking you, we'd have got there, and it would
we
have
would
been.
have definitely got there. We would have been able to infer for sure. I felt like it was a little bit jarring as well and a bit out of place. And I remember reading it and being like, oh God,
Yeah.
whoa,
And
okay.
and it was very much like, oh, he's the villain. Of course he wants that.
hmm hmm
Um,
hmm
yeah. So yeah, but again, what you were saying, like she that's it. She embodies her sexual identity. She's like, you couldn't. What if I? Which that she says to him, what if I like it?
hmm
What if I want it?
mm
What if, that was a really cool turning point of like, I'm embracing my sexual identity. I, you wouldn't be able to do that because I love sex. It's a threat to him because what do you do in that aspect? What can he
I
do?
think yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I think in one hand it is empowering, but it didn't quite sit with me that well because I think there is that misconception of non-con as a kink, but it's con non-con, right? Like, and
What
I
if,
just felt like, oh, are we really going to say that if someone is to rape you, like I'll like it, like
yeah, and
because I like everything sexual and I'm so sexualized. And I think that we've just got to that point sometimes where it's like you are so sexual, so you're asking for it.
yes, that yeah,
Yeah.
That's a perfect point, yeah. Especially in society with even though we've had Me Too and Time's Up and stuff, there's still thousands, hundreds of
Mhm,
tens of thousands of women who, when even now when they build when the prosecution builds a rape case, how many
mhm.
sexual partners have you had?
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
sort of thing. Consider the inference that, well, because if you've had too many, it's not going to look good.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes.
Do you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I completely understand what you mean. So yeah,
Yeah.
from one hand, you take it from power and control, and the other, it might not come across as what potentially we want.
No, especially with like sexual crimes against sex workers and the idea of like who takes it seriously and are you sure it was actually rape because you do, you sell your services, like
Yeah.
how can you tell where's the line? And I just felt like I kind of see what you're trying to do, and I think you are coming from a place of female empowerment and like I'm taking that back and you can't do this to me, but it just felt a little bit, oof, I just yeah, didn't quite sit with me that well.
Thankfully, when I was reading, I took it as the former, but I think
Hmm.
on any other day in a different mood, and I would be
Hmm.
100% with you. I think it just depended on how feeling that day, how you feeling yourself, etc.
Yeah,
It would change every time. Should we do some reviews?
let's do it.
There are quite a few 1 stars.
Can you just tell me what is the average rating? I didn't look this book up on Goodreads, so I don't know.
The average rating is 3.94.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Quite high,
Fair.
quite high.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
just
quite
to
high.
be clear, guys, we're not suggesting that Goodreads is the be all and end all. I use Storygraph as well, but Goodreads is probably just the quickest way for us to get a large collation of
Yeah,
reviews.
totally.
We're not suggesting it's the only place to look at reviews.
No.
Also, don't particularly agree with them when the Goodreads Choice Awards comes out, but that's a whole other episode. Anyway, yeah, so lots of reviews, 24,000 ratings, 2,500 reviews, 600 1-star reviews. The cover, a fantasy book. The content, a brothel for monsters. What I don't understand is that's it. That's the review. I'm like, well, how can that be a 1-star review? That doesn't sound like bad.
Oh,
I
is
think,
that the only thing
yeah,
that the person has written?
I think she's
Mm.
insinuating that she was maybe bought in with what looks like a cover for monsters.
Oh,
It is what we assume Esther, who just looks, I mean, fucking stunning,
I
holding a
know.
glass in clearly a sort of seductive manner area.
I don't look at that and think fantasy.
No, me either.
I think gothic, I think dark horror elements maybe, but I wouldn't look at that and go, it's a fantasy romance. Yeah,
No, no,
no.
absolutely not.
I
No.
think it's a gorgeous cover though. I actually really like the way that Esther's drawn.
Mm. My favorite 1-star was, I guess, good for her for keeping up with all their names because I could never.
Oh, really? I think that's quite unfair. I think it was quality over quantity.
Yeah.
I don't think there was that many. I mean, there were a lot, but I think they had all very like it was very clear their identities,
Mm.
and I didn't find it difficult to remember who was who.
Yeah, so obviously a lot of the 1-stars are it's pure smut, the sex was the plot is in the last 100 pages,
Mm.
and yeah, I'd imagine so. What I would ask these people is, what are you going in expecting
Yeah,
when you are told it is a reverse harem monster romance, not just a reverse harem, it's a monster romance. How much plot are you expecting here? Maybe that's right
agreed.
for you and I to assume. There's some. They do try with Bersha for sure.
The first thing that Catherine Moon has written in this book, the kind of dedication, for my fellow thirsty monster lovers, whether you rank a 1 or a 6 on the scale.
There you go. Yeah.
Again, I don't know what you expect going into a book like that.
Fair enough if all you had was the title A Lady of Rooksgrave Manor. You have on the front cover Tempting Monsters Book 1.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't
Mm.
I have read many books that have a bunch like we have a scale, right? There's a real smut where there is literally no plot and it's all just smut and it makes absolutely no sense, or whatever
Mhm.
little plot there is literally just there for an excuse for someone to keep booking. And this ranks higher than them, there is at least a plot to it and a
Yeah.
reason
Oh
why
yeah.
they're all there or why this is
Mhm.
happening. But, yeah, yeah. Um, the funnest 1-star review that I saw was, and this is word for word, if you're going to give a man a tail, I want to see him use it. Vanilla.
Vanilla. I mean, that is the thing, isn't it? It's so subjective. I was reading that thinking, is this potentially the smuttiest thing I've ever read? It's up there. That's so funny. And actually, though, in the second book, because I was having a little look just to see, and I was interested in that it's not a sequel in that it's the same characters. It's a whole new cast of characters. And funnily enough, in the content warning on her website, tail play is in there.
Interesting. Interesting.
So she's taken on the feedback, Kathryn. She's looked at what the people want and she's delivered.
I was so confused when I read that the next book wasn't this characters because this does not end where it's really supposed to end. Like they go to Egypt
No.
to hunt Bersha,
Hmm.
but also to be together, and
Yeah.
they have this like sort of feeling of like oh forever in each other's arms or whatever. Like oh how nice. Because from what I can gather, he is still the villain in the second and potentially the third book. So
Yes, but I think the second book is, you know how it's referenced that there are people, women from the theatre, the
yeah,
sex
yeah, yeah.
theatre going missing. It's that. So I don't know if maybe this is set before or alongside it, like the plots run kind of
Right,
together and
right.
eventually they will converge and we'll meet Esther and the gang later on in the story. But we have a new female main character.
Yeah, I basically I had to then go and do a deep dive, and I googled being like, do we see Esther again? And there is no
Mhm.
confirmation that we see her ever.
Oh,
Which, but there's also
oh.
no denial. Like I haven't seen anything. I would have thought I'd have seen a snifter of something of like, yeah, she comes back in book three, where all three
Hmm.
of the women who are all
Hmm.
in the same significant book come together to defeat him.
Hmm.
I would be fine with that. I can't stand when I meet characters that I sort of like in the first book,
Hmm.
so long building them up, for them to be a big bad and then just to sit out the fight. Why would
Just
they?
disappear. Yeah, I
Yeah,
know. Especially when, as you say, they're supposed to be going to Egypt to hunt Bershka again, Bershka. But hunt him down. Yeah, I was surprised by that actually.
yeah. So
I
yeah,
know.
this person's 1-star review was that this was vanilla. This book was a hot freaking mess. Why give me a monster fucking book and then make it the most vanilla thing I've ever read?
Gosh, what would they read then?
Do yourself a favor and read something else. This just wasn't it.
What else?
That's it.
What
That's
else?
it. Tell me. I want to see. Are there any comments? There are no comments. Like I want to know.
If this is vanilla in the monster community, because to be fair, I don't know because I haven't read, and I know there are some really big hitters that are wild. In fact, I've read Ruby Dixon, Ice Planet Barbarian, but that's it in this. So if there is something that's way more intense and full on and like spicy, tell us what that is,
Great. Just for
please.
science, just for science, just for science.
Oh yeah, of course, just for just yeah, just for research purposes. I was, so you said there, how many ratings did you say? 24,000.
Yeah.
That surprises me. I would have thought Monster was so niche that there wouldn't be as many reviews, but it's a really well established community because I was on Reddit, I was looking at sort of people that love this stuff, that read it all the time, what do they enjoy about it? And it seems to really just be about escapism and like, you
Yeah,
know,
it's what we talk about all the time, that taboo, that like
yes.
it's
Yes.
titillating. It's exciting.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
like I want to read on, but I'm also like, oh gosh, it's like,
absolutely.
yeah,
And it's also
yeah.
it's probably just an absolute scream. Like it must be so fun.
Oh
Like
yeah. I mean, I had fun with this. I was shrieking my way through this, like, no way. And yeah, it was fun. It was a really fun read. Because it wasn't a short read. Like when you did the summary, I thought this was going to be really short. It
four,
wasn't as short as I thought it was.
450, 490 pages, something. Yeah,
I like it.
it was
Yeah.
it was long. 5 stars to perfect monster reverse harem.
So we don't know what makes it perfect in that person's opinion. No.
A few maybe insights. A lot of people were saying that they really enjoyed the relationship between all of them. They thought that was really loving and such a nice element to this genre.
I would agree with that. Yeah, I think it was.
Very good sex practice.
Oh, practice.
So, like, I
Okay,
think the aftercare, um,
fair.
although I will point out, there was a scene where, what does she say? It's when her and Dr. Underwood have just been to the theatre, they're about to have sex. The line is, and I always woke up as wet as men woke up hard, to which I've just written a cystitis nightmare.
It's constant dampness. She references how that so much. There's so many references about how wet she is all the way through the book. And sometimes you just think, you're not always up for it, Esther. Let's face it.
Look, Esther can be up for it as many times as she wants. All I need to know, and I'm gonna say some words that I didn't think I'd ever say on this podcast, but Esther just given me swamp crotch vibes.
Oh, yeah. When we get to the ick, we can talk about that because it's part of it. But yeah.
Yeah. Um,
Mm,
but no, I think the sort of the good practice is the sex itself, the sort of the fairness. She gets a buttload of orgasms, and then I think the aftercare is nice as well. She's always
fair. Yeah.
looked after, cleaned, they don't hurt her so much. It's always it hurts, but it's okay. Like
You like it. I like it. Yeah. And we hear a lot from Esther. It's not a case of you will like this or you enjoy this or this is good for you. She is very much like, no, no, I'm having a good time.
yeah.
She's very vocal about that.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
it is very female strong, female driven
Hmm.
sexual content.
Hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and the final one is Booker. Everyone
Uh,
everyone loves Booker.
yeah, but not like, do you think if you were to rank him, he would be up there for, are people saying that they like him and they're like, he's so hot kind of way? We don't know.
I
Hmm.
think it's look, I'm not going to assume people's minds. I think it's a bit of both. I think
Okay.
it's
Fair.
but not for me. He is right at the bottom of the queue.
Yeah. Sorry, Booker. No, thank you. No, thank you.
No, thank you.
Okay.
Ick of the
Do
week.
you have an ick?
I will give a very quick ick. It is the lassie who's with, she's just an ick in herself. The lassie
Mary. Mhm.
with the rhino, and just how disgruntled she is about the whole thing and how awful she is to him and how like fucking,
Yeah.
how like disgusted she is by Esther. Like that's a whole ick for me. But yeah.
Yeah, Mary's an ick. Fair enough. Just some of the language choices, just,
Oh my God.
gosh.
Yeah. Um,
Button? What?
oh no, I text you about Button.
Button, no. Cherry tips? Absolutely not.
Is that is that nipples? Cherry tips, it's
Yeah.
got to be. Yeah. There's the scene where Mr. Tanner is having sex with her in the theater, and she says, "I gasped as his fat cockhead."
But I don't like when people use that word for descriptions of that. No.
It is a
Blunt was used a lot too.
What even is a cockhead? Like I know what it is. Like I know that it's obviously the tip of a penis, and it's like you couldn't have just said bell end, you couldn't have just said anything, but no, we have to use our own vernacular, fat cockhead.
It sounds like an insult.
It does. It does. Oh,
The
yeah,
language choices were not it for me, and I guess she was trying to do something different and use words that maybe aren't typically used. And because she had to write so many scenes, perhaps she was struggling so that it didn't become repetitive. But there were so many times when I was reading some of the choices and thinking, "Oh, really, ugh."
yeah. No,
Ugh.
I'm so sorry. I did have an ick. I've just seen it in my notes. It's how she refers to the men as blokes. It's the word
Ooh, yes.
I'd
It's
never
like when someone who's American tries to use like British. Yeah.
for me it made me think that she was saying, "Well, I've never been sent any kind of note from a bloke before, because I'm a working class chimney sweep." Like that
It
was
was that. It was very much that.
yeah.
Mm-mm, mm-mm, mm-mm. No, 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 no.
Final thoughts on the book and then the whole Valentine's 3 week. We'll do book first. Still sort of loved it. I don't think I'll be reading 2 and 3 purely because I'm a bit disappointed that I have to then like everyone all over again. And if we get like, oh, there's another couple of monsters and they're all so sweet and cute, but also perfectly beautiful. But
Hmm.
yeah,
Hmm.
it was fun. It was fun. And
It was a bit of fun. Um, if you are interested in monster romance and you want to try it and you want to kind of get a chance to sample maybe all the different, not all the different, but a few different examples of
Yeah.
like monster partners, then give it a go. Yeah, it's a bit of fun. It would be a really good buddy read, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great shout. Yeah, I would absolutely, yeah. If it's on your TBR, I mean, what's mad is when you said if you're really interested in monster romance, I'm surprised you wouldn't have already read this.
I think you would have because when I was looking up, because it was you were looking up the Sapphic one and I was looking up this one, and as soon as I typed it in to like any kind of like not Google as such, but just like any kind of community with like people who are interested in romance books, specifically monster romance books, it was like top of the list.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonder
You
if that
probably already tried it.
I wonder if that's because, and we'll talk about this very quickly, but like it sort of, it's not really that much of a monster romance. Now that I'm thinking about it, that review from that last was really quite interesting. Yeah, because it's what we said. Mr. Tanner's really the only monster there, right? Like
Yeah.
the rest of them are classic monsters for sure, like B movie, like the Invisible Man. That's taken straight from Hammer horror or like B movie horror.
hmm
Um, we had a wolf man, not with Esther, but we saw him. We have
Yeah.
vampire. The Sphinx is probably a new one that's a bit out there, but still
It
technically,
gave me like universal classic monsters,
yeah,
but rather than the mummy, she decided to go for a sphinx.
yeah. I think with the mummy is that's almost a desiccated corpse. So I definitely think
Exactly.
there'd have been, yeah. It's not
Mm,
sexy. It's not sexy.
no, put the
So
bandages back on, wrap those puppies back up. Yeah, no, but I can kind of see where her inspiration came. And I didn't really necessarily expect that. I thought we might get more, like as I said before, start Penny Dreadful type
yeah.
monsters. I actually thought when she went to the theatre, I thought we were going to get like a bit of Phantom. Is it
Oh,
going to, something like that? But yeah, maybe there will be more though, because she has written a hell of a lot of monster books. So there could be all sorts of monsters to explore if you want something a bit more monstrous, perhaps.
I will say with Phantom of the Opera, whenever in even if it's the film, if it's the West End or whatever, that reveal of the fact that half of his face is a little mottled is just always so underwhelming. Oh God, he's hideous. It's just a fucking bird.
Yeah,
Like
I know. Totally agree.
if you're in a reading slump, this is great. This is so fucking.
Oh, yeah.
It's a
Good
bit
fun.
long, so you might not want to. You could definitely dip in and out. If you needed something to just get you back into reading, you could definitely dip in, read
I
half of
was
it
going to
back
say,
out.
you could definitely read this over a course of a couple of weeks. In fact, you could even just, as you say, find a passage you enjoy, read about one of these people, like maybe one encounter, and be like, that's enough for me. I think that would be absolutely fine. But also, if you want something that's maybe got a little bit of plot and potential for a bigger world that you could explore, and apparently the second book is much higher rated than the first one too. People say skip the third one; it's not worth your time, but we can't comment on that. But if you are looking for something that could potentially lead to a bit, part of a bigger series, this could be the one.
Fair. Um, don't shove it up your TBR. That's what I'm gonna say. Don't worry about it.
No,
Don't rush to
don't
read it.
worry about it. No, no. If you get round to reading it, you'll probably have a good time with it, but I wouldn't prioritize it over other books.
No, for sure, for
No.
sure. All right. How are we feeling about the? I think, despite not knowing, so we picked all three at the same time. We didn't know. We didn't read them and then pick them. We did really well in amping it up.
I think we definitely did. Yes. And you're totally right. I didn't expect us to have done that because I wasn't aware of the spice level of Deep End.
No, I
Um,
mean, and if anything, that would
so
be a bit more spicy than we maybe could have had.
mhm,
You know. Um,
mhm, mhm.
But yeah, great. I've loved this. I've loved getting to explore love with you.
Love, 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 love. We're going to stick to a bit more love, but then we're gonna move away from it because we do get quite comfortable, you and I, don't we? We get quite into our little fantasy romance world and we don't really like to let go of it. But this podcast is about different genre, exploring different books, reading things we might not necessarily pick up on our own. So if fantasy romance is not your bag, if romance in general is not your thing, then over the course of the next few weeks and months and the rest of this year, it's going to be a lot more varied. But we had to do it for February. We
Yeah,
had to.
had to. Yeah, so what we're gonna read next, I think, is probably the big call. May I?
You may, yeah, please
Oh.
do.
So we are delving into a standalone,
Hmm.
which we love a standalone. It's always good to rep a standalone. And we're going to read Immortal by Su Lin Tan. Really excited for that. Hopefully you'll tune in and join us. And yeah, and then in a couple of weeks we'll be doing some different genres for you. And we're really excited for that. So thank you for
Mm.
joining us on this 3 week love journey. The tunnel of love. You can see the lights. We're all out of the sex cave together. And honestly,
You've escaped.
we've punched our tickets. The fairground ride is over. Thanks for joining.
Yeah.
See you next week. Happy reading.